You are listening to the global network of podcasters dedicated to the pharmacy profession. Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Welcome to another episode of the Precision Medicine Pharmacist on the Pharmacist Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dr. Melissa Smith, and today we are diving into a critical and exciting conversation about the evolution of pharmacogenomics and what it means for the future of our profession. Our guest is a true leader in the space, Dr. Vanessa Lesneski. She is a PharmD and a dedicated educator at the LECOM School of Pharmacy and a pioneer in the implementation and innovation of PGX in clinical practice. Together, we'll explore how pharmacy education is adapting and what new career paths are opening up and why now, more than ever, pharmacists must take control of their role in guiding in the interpretation and application of this genetic data. Vanessa, you are a dear friend to me, but also it is an honor to have you on this episode today. So first of all, welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, yes, I'm happy to have you here. Give a brief overview and just introduce yourself to the audience, because I'm sure that they are wanting to hear a little bit more.
All right. So I am Dr. Vanessa Lesneski. I started my pharmacy journey at the University of Florida, got my doctorate there. Yes, go Gators. And from there, I did a little small stint in retail, but that wasn't quite for me, which honestly was surprising because I had waited tables a lot before that. So I thought that was going to be a good fit. But, you live and you learn. So from there, I had the awesome opportunity to work for a pharmacy benefits manager. And I did a lot of their escalated cases as a clinical pharmacist for them. So that was super fun. And that really just kind of ignited my passion for diving in deeper for patients. From there, I had a very exciting opportunity to work for a startup in pharmacogenomics. And what had happened was my mom's friend's sister was sitting next to somebody on an airplane. So sometimes it is not what you know, but who you know. I think you need to have what you know, though, really. So I entered the world of pharmacogenomics, kind of like on the spot. I really just did a lot of digging and learning on my own and jumped in as a subject matter expert for a startup company. And we had a lovely run, but we were a startup company and things shifted as far as the payment reimbursement goes. And unfortunately, that company kind of collapsed eventually. It morphed and then morphed. But the vision is still alive. And from there, I went to work for a compounding pharmacy, which was super fun. For all you pharmacists out there, if you are trying to find something that is your calling, definitely take a look at compounding. That was super fun. I really enjoyed it. It's like being a cook in the kitchen, you know, and your technicians are your lifeline there. They really know their stuff. So that was really fun, but I got to set up a nutrition program for them. So I had a really fun little wormhole there. So now I've got two wormholes. I've got pharmacogenomics and a nutrition wormhole that I have gone down. And a friend of mine suggested that I come work with her at Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine. In their school of pharmacy in Bradenton, Florida. So I was like, well, that sounds interesting and different. So I kind of jumped in and I started there and I've been there for 8 years. And I have done a couple of fun, interesting things. I started an elective that's super unique. It was the first one of its kind in the United States in functional medicine, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
No, but it is applicable. It's applicable there as well.
Yeah. So this concept of personalized medicine is really out there. And, that's part of what functional medicine is. And so for the people that are listening, functional medicine, the quick and dirty definition it is looking at the root cause of disease. So why is your patient, why are they having the issues that they're having? What is actually causing that, and how do we reverse it, support it, change
and
the
course. DNA is a very foundational root cause, right?
So strangely enough, my two little niches fit together really nicely because at the end of the day, everybody's an individual, right? Like you and I could go out to a restaurant and we're going to order something different off the menu because we're different people. So we're at the same restaurant, we're having the same experience, but we're eating different foods. So we're all different. So that kind of like both of those things marry very nicely. So anyways, so yeah, so then circling back forward, I had that wonderful experience working with the genetics company. So I brought that experience with me to teaching, which the students really enjoy hearing about that. So at that company, to kind of go backwards, that company was really trying to give doctors an actionable report because, you know, a genetic report is kind of rough to read.
Yes, for sure.
So that's kind of like where I am. So I've spent the last years in education, which is, I think, phenomenal. It's a perfect fit for a lot of pharmacists because we are constantly educating patients on what it is that they need to take from their medication and what they need to do with their medications. So we are natural educators. So I've really enjoyed being an educator. So yeah, that's my story. It's kind of long.
It's a great story. It gives perspective that you don't always, you know, land where you think you're going to when you initially start your career. You got to be able to be adaptive and pivot and explore other options to make yourself that much more rounded and capable as a pharmacist as well. So that's so cool. I'm glad you shared that. But you also, within teaching, you provide pharmacogenomics within the curriculum, and that's correct, yes?
Correct. Yeah. So there is, you know, for the accreditation process, one of the requirements is to include some pharmacogenomics. Now, the accreditation process, the body that governs that, they're not very, very specific about exactly what needs to be in the curriculum as far as pharmacogenomics, but it does need to be there. So, you know, a lot of schools have undergone curriculum changes. We did in 2021, I believe. You know, we've gone to this module program. Our previous curriculum had a standalone 2-credit course in pharmacogenomics. Now we have the pharmacogenomics built into each module for the different disease states, but then we also have like a little bit of an introduction to genetics in our early first year classes. And then it is also built into some lectures too. So we still include it. It's just not a standalone course. I would like to see that beefed up a little bit. So that's probably my responsibility at least. But also, you know, I think there needs to be a little bit more governing and we need to kind of, I think pharmacists do need to take a moment and come together and say what that looks like.
There's quite a few around the country, especially getting into the PGY2 rotations for pharmacists as well, offering more of those as well. So it's definitely becoming more of a concentrated focus and a specified, and I see it becoming a specialty under pharmacy here in the near future. There's a lot of different things.
Yeah, so that's a double-edged sword. It's funny that you bring that up because that was one of the things on the list of questions that you had about the training. So, you know, we have a lot of board certifications already. So I could actually argue this both ways. So I do like the idea of pharmacists specializing in pharmacogenomics. I think that we need more knowledge and education out there. However, I worry that, you know, with the cost of everything increasing, pharmacy salaries are pretty much staying stagnant, which is okay. It's a good salary. But, you know, you have to be careful. And then when you start to get these different certifications, you have to pay for the update, the yearly update of those certifications.
Oh, yes, definitely. So, different licensures require different types of fees and all types of continuing education around it too. Yep.
Right. So that's just more money out of somebody's pocket. And I just worry sometimes if all these certifications are a little bit, not to be negative, but a little bit of a business. Yeah. So I think we should be careful.
It's in our intuitive nature as a pharmacist as well to already be incorporating this type of thought process in our verification, right? So thinking about the pharmacokinetics, we see it all the time. You see it when you're verifying even at the retail level with omeprazole and clopidogrel. Big interaction there for it not activating clopidogrel from the CYP2C19 inhibition. So we're already got that concept. It's just remembering that concept as the genetics come into play. It's the same concept. It's just the genetic role as opposed to the drug-to-drug interaction role. But and this kind of leads me into exactly kind of your point there with like the cost of things, like the cost of tuition, different things. we've seen a significant decline in pharmacy school enrollment, really, and applications dropped from here's a statistic, around 100,000 in 2011 to just around 40,000 by 2021. And the number of new graduates in 2022 fell to a 40-year low. So that's interesting. So what do you think, aside from, yes, cost is a big one, anything driving this downturn, and how do you see PGX potentially reigniting the interest in pharmacy as a forward-looking, tech-savvy profession for pharmacists? It's a big question, right?
Yeah, that's got a couple of parts to it. Okay, so let's address first the part about the downturn in interest, but that's really being driven by jobs, right? So I have sat on admissions for more years than not at LECOM. I adore admissions.
Yeah, you got a good perspective on this.
It's my favorite committee, but it is a hard committee, and it is time consuming. But it's really exciting committee because I like to look at the applicants and the current students, and you get really excited about it. And I also like recruitment too, like to do the activities. So one of the reasons, and we've been seeing this trend for longer than the statistics have shown, because those of us that work in
see it, you're actively seeing it.
So in 2014, when I worked for the pharmacy benefits manager, that entity, the local pharmacy that was here, folded, and we dumped 300 pharmacists out into the
job market,
Tampa Bay area. Yep, job market. So
it almost flooded it. Too much availability and not enough job availability.
Right. So what we're seeing is a result of automation. So it started much earlier, and then the trends are catching up. So the idea of a pharmacist standing, in a pharmacy at your corner, and the lick, stick, and pour, which many pharmacists might not know what that means, but they used to lick the labels to stick them on there.
Yes.
Not actually lick them, but they had to wet them to stick them on there, right?
That's funny.
And they would do them on typewriters, right? Like I work with people who have who recently, well, not recently, but when I first started working, there were people that were talking about that. That wasn't that long ago. So pharmacy filling a prescription was very manual. Now we have more and more automation to do that, right? And then when I was starting pharmacy, the 90-day supply was only available through insurance companies. Now we have those available through any pharmacy. So the trends are changing, and there's just a lot of automation. So the manual labor aspect of it is kind of going away. We've also changed the pharmacist to tech ratios, because there is better ways of checking the prescription, even if you're not the one filling it. So aspects of that have been automated. That's what I'm looking for. And so, a lot of automation, a lot of changing of the pharmacist's responsibilities. And honestly, pharmacists now are being educated on the level of a clinician, but when we get out into the job market, we're not being treated like a clinician. It's a 4-year doctorate program. I don't have to tell you. But when that originally came about, the idea was for pharmacists to be providers. So the fact that we didn't happen.
It's not landing. Like the education level isn't translating into the jobs available, right?
Correct. So
I feel like this is where the PGX element is an opportunity for job growth for pharmacists to be utilized as more of a clinician. I see where you're going. Yes.
And you're picking up what I'm putting down.
And I feel like I have a lot of people reach out to me just in general about what I do to be active in the PGX space and how I am contributing and able to apply the knowledge, right? And I tell them a lot of these jobs are on the back end. A lot of them are with the report generation companies and also with the laboratories themselves, helping to support the providers who are ordering, the patients who are receiving the information as well, and providing clinical counseling, applying it in my own private practice as well as how I utilize it the most. But I think in upcoming years, we're going to see a shift in that dynamic and the pharmacist supporting a provider with the interpretation of these results. And we all know the reason for that is because many of them are not trained, and it's not their fault to not understand this information, but we need to align the stars when it comes to reimbursement at a level like that for pharmacists to be paid for their time to do this service as well. So that's where I see the gap. And I'm sure you can appreciate that whole level of conversation.
Yeah, so total nail on the head, right? So we have these pharmacists that are being educated on the level of a clinician. They're getting out of school, and then they're fulfilling these roles that are being taken away by automation, and rightfully so. I mean, they are trained at a higher level.
Yeah, they don't need to be filling the pills. You know what I mean?
Just being a dispensing pharmacist is a little bit. I mean, but there are a lot of clinical tools that they need, that even a dispensing pharmacist needs. I'm not
and that's another endpoint where they need it.
They're not fulfilling their clinical roles, but there are those of us who want to practice at the top of our licenses. As you can see from my credentials, I do have a consultant pharmacist license on top of my registered pharmacist license. In order to be able to be at the top of my license, I am on file with the board for a collaborative practice agreement. I don't currently have one in place, but to be able to practice at the top of our licenses and give patients the clinical expertise that we have. And the clinical expertise that we have is that we understand the nuances of the different medications. So for example, your patient needs a beta blocker. Well, which one do you pick? You don't necessarily, it may not be the right drug for the patient.
It's not protocol selection anymore.
But you're picking, you're picking the one where the salesperson was just in your office. Like that may or may not be the right. It might be the right drug for that patient, but it might not to say it wouldn't be. Right. And I do think that pharmacists should have that role where we are either vetting or picking the therapy for the patient.
Oh, agree.
Because we have the expertise to say that. And then you pull in pharmacogenomics. So maybe pharmacogenomics becomes our lifeline to say, hey, you really need us on staff picking the therapies. Because, in order to apply pharmacogenomics, and I don't know what your viewership consists of, but if they,
it's pharmacists and practitioners wanting to just learn, get more knowledge base, and just be up to snuff with the information out there about it.
Okay, so the pharmacogenomics that we have at our fingertips right now is regarding metabolism. So, really at the end of the day, you're looking at pharmacokinetics. Now, I do not anticipate a doctor to be able to have all of the things that they've learned about diagnostic tools and diagnosing a patient and evaluating a patient and hold all that pharmacokinetic information in their head. I can't do that. I'm over here on the pharmacokinetic side, right? So, having that pharmacist at least weigh in and say, hey, this will work best for the patient based on the other medications they're taking, based on their kidney clearance, based on their nutrition status, based on their activity level, gender even, and potentially pharmacogenomics. So I do think that, in order for us to be thoughtful and individualize therapy, we do need to make sure that pharmacists are getting paid for their time. There's no other way to make that happen.
That's where I see the future going with it. And honestly, it has to be built internally within the structure of the payment systems with the insurance companies, right? So it's...
Yeah, we're not going to get any traction until we start getting paid for our time. However, if you noticed, insurance rates are significantly going up for a lot of patients in the coming year.
Didn't notice. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah. So I also am wondering if patients are going to start to get, and it's going to be patient driven. So if patients start to get fed up with the cost of copays, insurance premiums, where they might just go to
a private pay,
forget the insurance and go to private pay, just pay it for them themselves. In which case, a patient may be willing to pay us, to do this for them, because it will. I mean, every study they've ever done where you insert a pharmacist in the middle here, as far as fulfilling a clinical role, brings down cost, increases better outcomes, and decreases adverse effects.
Absolutely. So definitely.
We have the data to back ourselves up.
For sure. And yes, I can't agree with you more on that.
And, students are hungry to learn these new things, right?
Oh, yes. You brought me right into my topic.
I mean, I just say the word pharmacogenomics and half the class's eyes light up.
They're like,
right?
Tell me more. Yes.
Yeah, it's exciting, and it's a nuance to pharmacy. So it makes us stand out, right? Like, I mean, doctors and nurses, they know what a beta blocker is, and they know what a beta blocker does. We're the ones that know how beta blockers metabolize.
Right.
So it makes us, it's unique to us, and it just excites students, and it's cutting edge.
So,
but the same with functional medicine too. I thought that students would think I was off my rocker when I first started introducing little nuggets of functional medicine in my lectures. And they love it. They just ask for more. I had one course where I was supposed to be doing a NAFLEX review. We did do our NAFLEX review, but I started talking about some of the other practical applications of functional medicine, and it was lipids.
Yes.
Low-hanging fruit. And so the students were like, no, we want more. We'll just sit here. We don't care that we're over on time.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
I can't tell you how many students have reached out to me just to have just a conversation with me about what I'm doing, how I got into the space, and just wanting more knowledge about how they can become more educated even outside of school necessarily. And that's kind of my next topic I wanted to segue into is there's just a growing list of different PGX certification programs, right? So we have ones from ASHP, ACCP, the Genomics has courses, UF has them, Mayo Clinic. And with the boards, we were talking.
Test to learn.
Test to learn. Yep.
Another one that's out there.
There's quite a few. These are just a few that I was just naming, but we were talking about the board of pharmacy specialty practices as well. And it being in the foresight, I honestly think it is something that's coming into our reality very quickly here, as far as becoming a potential. It's been put in front of that board a few times for it to become a specialty. And I feel like it's this year that may even be on the docket for that as well. And so I want to think about what pathway would you recommend for pharmacists or students who want to become deeper in their knowledge and expertise of PGX, especially if they're new or transitioning from other clinical areas. So practicing pharmacists already out, or student level base, right? Any insight for them?
Okay, so I will give the University of Florida College of Pharmacy, Pharmacy Therapeutics answer. You ready?
Yes.
It depends.
Yes.
So it truly does depend. It depends on what the pharmacist's goal is, and what they're wanting to get from the education, and what they're wanting to do with the education, right? Are they just curious and interested? So, and then also timing. Do they want a live experience in the learning? Do they want a pre-recorded? Do they want a webinar? These are the things that they have to ask themselves when they're evaluating these different programs. I think all the programs you listed are very good,
right?
Except for I'm not familiar with the Genomics one. I'll be honest.
Yeah, Genomics has a 1 hour free CE. I will say, for anybody to take, practitioner or pharmacist alike. And they also have an 8 hour certification, just a general overview of pharmacogenomics as well. So it has a higher level of teaching on it, but also a free CE. So check that out if anybody's interested.
So I would also be careful, so when I first started as a pharmacist, and you're doing CEs and you're getting this and you're getting that. So some of these certifications, it's just that entity calling it a certification. So it depends on what they're after and what they want to do with it. To be careful with the certifications, because it's just that entity calling it a certificate. If you want a true board certification, that's through the Board of Pharmacy Specialties, right? Which is what we were talking about.
It's not there yet.
So be careful with that.
I think just getting foundational knowledge more than they're getting in school is what people are hungry for. So these are multiple options.
I will put up there the University of Florida's pharmacogenomics certificate programs. They're really great if you are a pharmacist in the state of Florida. The nice thing is those can count as consultant hours. So sometimes if you have a consultant license, those are hard to find. They do have little mini courses, but they also have a big, long, certificate course. They are my alma mater, but they are also one of the OGs in pharmacogenomics space. I remember the first pharmacogenomics textbook that ever came out was full of University of Florida people. So that was pretty exciting for me as an alum. But absolutely, I would recommend.
It has the first pheno conversion calculator for CYP2D6 as well. Yes.
Right. So I like that one. I would plug that one if you're asking me to recommend one. But also, look at what fits your needs and your learning style. That's one thing we talk about a lot as advisors with our students at LECOM is learning style. Like when you're studying, what works best for you, and that applies to CEs too, because CEs you're spending money, and you want to get the biggest bang for your buck and retain that knowledge. Personally, if I am, have something that's recorded and I'm not like engaged with live people, sometimes I zone out and I have to back up, and it takes me longer because I've zoned out. So knowing your learning style too. I
think that a lot of people are hungry even just for context around people who are actually practicing in the space. I attended a live forum earlier this year with a lot of pharmacogenomic pharmacists throughout the United States and even internationally through Australia as well were participating in it. And it was just more of presenting information in a forum that allowed people the context of how you can apply pharmacogenomics in every different facet of practice. So when we think about those different areas, we can think about ambulatory care, hospitals, long-term care, labs, and remote clinical or consulting jobs. So from your vantage point, where do you see the most exciting opportunities right now, and which settings are truly embracing pharmacogenomics in a day-to-day clinical decision? Where I've seen it, hospital space, yes, clinics, things of that nature. Josiah Allen is one within his hospital setting that implements that and also provides that PGY2 residency program for pharmacists as well. Let me look that up right now, because I'm going to give a shout out to him, because that's a big one for people to look at. But I want to hear from you too.
So, I recently was able to talk with some other universities recently, and they're not as far along as I expected. So I think it depends on the institution. It depends on the setting. But I do think that, like I was talking about how patients, we have seen this uptick of patients being dissatisfied with the current healthcare that they're offered.
Right.
So I do see like some of these, one-on-one private pharmacists working with patients. I actually think the community setting would be a really fun way to do that. It's just, how do you free up some time for the pharmacist without overstressing them, because they're already overstressed? So that's one area. I think I have had a practice site at a doctor's office for the last 5 years. And I really think embedding a pharmacist into every doctor's office is the true exciting answer to a lot of healthcare related issues. I think that they could incorporate pharmacogenomics. They could also incorporate monitoring, titrating of drugs to optimal outcomes, catching adverse effects before they become serious. So I think ambulatory care pharmacy is not something that really exists outside of academia on a regular basis. There are some, but I think that is the key to improving healthcare, improving outcomes, improving patient satisfaction, and also improving pharmacist satisfaction with their day-to-day duties.
Yeah. Just to kind of full circle moment from what I was talking about before too, Josiah Allen, he's out of St. Elizabeth Healthcare in Cincinnati, Ohio. So that's where the PGY2 Clinical Pharmacogenomics Pharmacy Residency Program is located, and he's the director of that. So keep your students in mind for that. That's another extension of them being able to pursue it outside of school. Also, Perfecting Peds. Have you ever heard of Dr. Jenna Quinn with Perfecting Peds? She specializes with utilizing pharmacogenomics in that patient population. And so that's a whole, we think about our young population, right? And implementing it there. And there's different ways of incorporating the pharmacogenomics specifically with kids, right? Because of just
Yeah.
the nature
and here's
of,
the thing.
yeah.
Like if you're a pharmacist out there and you're interested in pharmacogenomics, like, I mean, I literally taught myself pharmacogenomics. I was teaching myself pharmacogenomics when PharmGKB was this like
Yes,
website.
you always tell me this.
Another website. It was like hard to find.
Give context about that. You started back with the company that you worked, the genetics company you worked with back in what year was that? I want context around this.
I think it was 2014. I probably should have.
So 2012, 2014, between that time frame.
It was kind of around there. Maybe it was 2012. So it was back then.
Right?
Back then. Huh? What was that?
I said early stages.
So there was some pharmacogenomics education in pharmacy school back then, at least at University of Florida, Pioneer. It really wasn't anything that was talked about too much. I worked for a really great company prior to working for the startup company, and they were doing some research with 2D6 and tamoxifen way back then. Because they had so much data. I mean, we did we adjudicated about 80% of the prescriptions in the United States. So that was pretty.
Yeah, that gives perspective on what's being covered as far as the cost of testing, right?
Right. So back then when I got the connection to work for this startup company, I was like, I have to learn more. And so I just sat there and, absorbed everything I could. PharmGKB, which is its own website now, was like a website within a website. And that's where I got a lot of information. They have a YouTube channel, which is kind of cool. They have lots of resources. If you are a teacher like me and you need good graphics, they have beautiful graphics for pathways. So I do recommend that website a lot. CPIC is your other big website for pharmacogenomics. They do put out guidelines, but the FDA does have a list of medications that they recommend genetic considerations for. A lot of the stuff, there's not a lot of drugs that require genetic testing, but it is recommended for more drugs than you would actually think. It's making it into the package insert that is something that is being pushed by the FDA to have that data. I'll be honest, drug companies don't want to do that data because it pigeonholes them. If you do genetic research on a drug and you find that it doesn't work great in a population, Plavix is your best example of this, then they can't service a portion of the population and they don't like that.
Exactly. However, it's better safety profile for selection for the patient, God forbid.
They do have to do that now. So that's kind of, so there are entities out there that are housing this information. And you can learn a lot on your own without even spending money on these certification programs too.
Yeah. And quite honestly, when I went through my process of becoming more familiarized with PGX, that was kind of a similar journey. I did do a certification course, but my practical knowledge came from the practical use of it. It was actually applying it, counseling on it, and presenting it in different forums to people so they would understand how important it is.
So back in 2012, 2014, whenever, I think it was 2012. I think you're right. 2012, when I was working for the startup company, what our product was totally different than anything else in the market. It kind of arguably still is. And what it was doing is it was marrying the pharmacogenomics with the medications that the patient was actually taking so that the doctor got a real life actionable report that was for that patient.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it's not just not just your genetics that are determining how you handle drugs.
Right.
It's also the other drugs. It's also, kidney, liver function, nutrition status, even gender for some drugs. So, it was marrying all that together and putting it in a piece of paper for the physician to know what that was. Very time consuming. We did those reports in Excel. So that was the
now automation and AI have come into the picture with all of that. So it has definitely, there you go, with the less burden, but more clinical. We can look at the information as opposed to creating the wheel, right?
Well, here's the thing. If pharmacists had gotten reimbursed for their time in creating those reports, like directly, like like we probably still would be doing that.
Right.
Like, and I think that's better. Like, yes, we can automate this, but for cost savings, but sometimes you have to ask, is that the right thing to do? And so sometimes I wonder, is that the right thing to do? And I do think it's helpful, but I do think having the special sauce of a pharmacist.
Oh yes, the oversight, it has to be there.
Yeah, and even talking to a physician or talking to a patient.
I think they don't want to just have something regurgitated to them from some automated PDF. And a lot of times when they're even reading it, they don't even know, interpreting it and understanding it is just not translating. So when they can, and patients would rather be speaking to a pharmacist in general. And physicians are now becoming a lot more welcoming of that, because now that it's being asked of them to be ordering from their patients more often, and they're getting in these, I find more often than not, it's a patient having the barrier of the provider not feeling comfortable with ordering and then having to find it through different types of labs that will provide it to them. And yes, it's a big barrier for them for sure.
It's a lot. There's a lot to bite off here.
Oh, definitely.
I still think though that pharmacists, however you slice it, I do think in order for us to take the next step in providing patients better healthcare, I do think pharmacists just need to be paid for their time and their clinical expertise.
I can't agree with you more. I can't agree with you more. But that is something that I've been working towards for many years now. You more than me, but definitely many years in the working. It's coming. I see it on the horizon for us, coming on sooner than later, in my opinion. But I want to, first of all, thank you for being on this episode with me today. You brought such great insight into the space of academia, where pharmacogenomics is, how you're providing that to your students that currently go to LECOM. We've talked about many different facets of how it can be incorporated and next steps for anybody who may be interested in pursuing it as well. So I want to just conclude with that, bringing us to the end of today's episode. I want to thank Vanessa for being on the episode today. You have been a huge asset in bringing forth knowledge about how PGX is being implemented into the academic space for pharmacy students. And I just wanted to thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was lovely to get a chance to talk about this. I'm passionate about pharmacogenomics. I'm passionate about taking pharmacy to the next level. So thanks for having me.
Oh, you are so welcome. I'm so glad you were able to be here. And to our listeners, if you're inspired by today's discussions, check out my show's notes, actually, for links for these PGX training programs and certification opportunities. I wanted to leave those there for anybody interested in furthering their education in pharmacogenomics and being able to start implementing with your own patient populations. So until next time, I'm Dr. Melissa Smith. Thanks for tuning in to the Precision Medicine Pharmacist on the Pharmacist Podcast Network. Stay curious, stay innovative, and always be precise.